Hello, everyone. Welcome to Connected Geek, and thank you for joining us today. Today, on Connected Geek, we're talking a little about tech tips, but we're taking it one step further. We're having Shawn, who is my partner over here, and he and I are going to talk about social media from his point of view because he does it so often every day, and he gets really good traction. And I wanted to take some time with him and ask him and have him explain what he does that helps him get business and helps his clients and helps himself be better in the marketplace. So, Shawn, thank you for joining us today.
You're very welcome, Larry.
Thank you. So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm an international motivational speaker, an executive coach, trainer, facilitator. And I go into business across the country and I help leaders understand what leadership is really and truly all about, right? Identify the company's blind spots and then come up with the strategies and solutions to help them to become more efficient and better worker employees and managers. So
when you're out doing this type of work, what kind of leaders are interacting with you to the point where you're getting really good feedback on the services that you're giving?
You mean on social media?
Yes. So from you post on social media a lot. So you have a lot of interaction on social media, namely like LinkedIn and Facebook, for examples. When you post things, let's say you did an article about leadership.
Right.
What kind of traction are you getting from those CEOs, CFOs on what you're posting? Are they giving you feedback, or are you just getting calls? What kind of traction?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different things. I get some comments sometimes. A lot of times there's likes, and in certain cases I know there's a tremendous amount of views. Especially when you talk about LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn I have about 26,000 followers, and it's a mix of executives and directors and mid-level managers, salespeople. They're on there, and because I have the upgrade version on LinkedIn, I can see exactly who's paying attention to me. Right, so when I take a look at the statistics, it'll show me that there's 30 different CEOs that actually viewed this particular post, or there's 200 managers that viewed this post, and so there's different levels of interaction. But the thing that's probably most beneficial for me is just the awareness, right?
So give me an example of something that you just recently posted where you saw a great exchange of ideas or just feedback or that type of thing.
Yeah, so I just sent out a post maybe 2 days ago on leading one way, and we talked about autocratic leadership. And that particular post, it had like 8 likes, but it already has 3,000 views on it.
So what does that 3,000 views typically do for you? Does it give you any type of clients? Does it give you any type of just overall feedback?
Yeah, what it happens is the awareness factor. So if I go into
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what does that awareness factor mean to you?
So for example, if I go into an organization and I introduce my services and what I do, in most cases, or many times I should say, they already know who I am, right? Because they're watching all the things that I do. Right, and what's really cool is that a lot of the employees of these companies are already connected to me. They see my stuff all the time, and so when they introduce me to their employees, there's already a connection that's established. Right, so the sales process becomes a shorter sales process because of it.
So you've obviously gone into a meeting or a sales call, and those people that you've already been liked with, does it feel like they have a better connection with you? I mean, to the point, I know you're already getting an easier sales call, but I mean, do they feel like they know you?
I can't say that they feel like they know me, but because I post so frequently, and I'm always doing work, it validates me.
Gotcha.
And a lot of times they see me as this expert that's way up here.
Right.
And that means a lot, right? Because I want them to see me as the expert.
Great. So earlier this week, I did a series on social media stalking, companies looking at your social media and how they rate you before they hire you. I did a digital footprint. I also did a banks and lenders. Talking about the first thing on my list was the stalking. So when those people are looking at your social media, does it sometimes feel a little invasive, or does it feel like it's kind of rewarding to knowing that they're seeing this awesomeness that you're putting out? Because I've seen what you do, and you do a great job on giving the value. Like one of the things that you're doing right now is the 50 things that
50 biggest mistakes that managers make.
Exactly. So you're giving value every single day, and giving little quips about how they should do it in their workspace. So because you're giving that value, those people that are quote unquote stalking you, but they're not really stalking you. They're just kind of like embracing your life, right? Is that what you're...
I mean, like, I want to be stalked, right? I mean, from a business perspective, I want people to come after me. Now, listen, if there's other kinds of stalkers, that's a whole other story.
Correct.
But at the end of the day, you want people to follow you. You want people to reach out to you on every single post. Because when I see someone that's liking every single post, or they're commenting on every single post, that means that I have someone that's engaged, and that's a potential client.
So, in a way, you're an influencer.
Right.
Because Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of them are using that term nowadays, to the influencer. So you're influencing people's decisions, people's mindsets, people's ways of just interacting with people. And which leads me to the second topic that I wanted to go into is the jobs and companies are reviewing people's social media potentially before they hire them.
Right.
How do you think that impacts the managers and leaders of companies? Do you think that they're weighing that more so today than they were 5 years ago, or even 10 years ago?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, your Facebook page or your social media page is really an extension of who you are. Now, unfortunately, a lot of people use a social media page to project something that they're not. And that could be a very big issue. But if you have recruiters all across the country now, they're looking at Facebook pages, Instagram pages, LinkedIn pages to see if there's anything derogatory on the pages, or anything that may represent the company that they're representing the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And so if you have an inappropriate picture, or there's derogatory language, or you're allowing someone who posts on your page derogatory language, in many cases that will cancel you out from the interview process. As a matter of fact, they tend to throw those resumes right in the garbage can
as soon as they review that.
As soon as they see it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I have had a lot of discussions about your talks and what you do in your talks to audiences, i.e. that we did just recently on October 18th, the millennial talk there. Yeah. Anyway, so during that,
bridging the gap between CEOs and millennials.
There it was.
Man.
I just lost it for a second. Sorry about that. So you had talked about how they could. So you had a great story about this young man who did this great work for 90 days, but did it earlier than that. Can you give us a really quick synopsis of that? I want to talk about that at the end of it. So if you can just.
Right. So there was a young man that was interviewing for an internship, and this one marketing company, they were going to interview 20 kids, and when they got to this kid, which was the fourth interview, they decided to drop the remaining interviews because this was their guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And what was really cool about this company is that they had all of the assignments and the tasks that this kid would have to do over the next 90 days. It was all spelled out for him, which is real cool for a millennial.
Right.
And so when he started doing the work, you know what? His attitude was great. His work ethic was great. He started off like gangbusters. The manager noticed that and really just stopped watching him because she felt comfortable about the work that he was doing.
Exactly.
But after she stopped watching him, especially right around day 31, 32, 33, a lot of the other employees who were not millennials, they were Gen Xers and boomers, had a problem with what they were saying because, he was outside on the balcony listening to music with his headphones on for 20, 25 minutes at a time, right? Sometimes he was ordering gym shoes and jogging suits, right, to the business location, trying stuff on at work, right. or sometimes he was at his desk on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. And so it looked as though that he was not doing his job. And so all of the other employees started complaining to the manager. And make a long story short, the manager finally called him in and basically asked him, what's going on with you? Your work ethic is poor. You started off great. And she basically berated this kid for about 10 minutes. And then after she was done, she asked the kid a very simple question. Is there anything that you want to say? And here's what the kid said. He said, I didn't understand. I didn't know that I was doing anything wrong. And then she came back and says, well, how do you figure that? How do you figure you can be outside, listen to music at 30 minutes at a time and know that you're not doing something incorrect? The kid says, you know what? Because I'm actually done with the work. She says, you mean you're done with all the work for the next 90 days? He says, yes. And then she says, well, how come you didn't share that information with me? How come I don't have it? And then he comes back and says, well, you said turned it in 90 days. This is day 34. Right? So,
I love that story.
Yeah.
So where I'm going with this is that these millennials, as you're mentioning, they're doing a different type of work today because we Gen Xers have put upon them certain expectations. We're not giving them the proper expectations. Right? So we are living in such a deep social media world. When that young man goes and becomes our age, he's going to be doing social media at a different level. Right. He's going to be doing work at a different level. What is happening today in our workforce, do you think, from your opinion, how is that going to change in the next 10 to 15 years where all we're doing is interacting on our phones and interacting on our social media to the point where that's how they're doing business versus today we're having to stumble through it as Gen Xers,
right?
And they're just doing it second nature.
Yeah, well, today it causes a lot of chaos and dysfunction in the workplace because what we're finding is that the face-to-face communication in the workplace is becoming less and less. And there's more email, there's more social media. As a matter of fact, some companies now, they have social media softwares that they use for people to communicate, messenger,
like Slack
in the workplace. And so what's happening is that there's so much miscommunication because when you're communicating over social media or email, you lose the visual aspect and you also lose the audio aspect. And so there's a lot of misinterpretation that goes on in the workplace, right? So because you have all the different generations in there, you have millennials and Gen Xers and boomers, and the only ones that are really are used to communicating like that through messenger and email on a consistent basis are millennials, right? So now there's a lot of miscommunication, and because of that, there's a lot of turmoil and toxicity that's happening between the different generations in the workplace. Now, that being said, the millennials are right now they're 30% of the workforce, and by 2020, which is next year, they'll be 50% of the workforce, and by 2025 they'll be 75% of the workforce, and so now the workforce is going to be dominantly millennials. Right. Well, that dysfunction is going to eventually it's going to remove itself because the majority of the workforce will be that group, and they understand how to communicate that way. So times are starting to change, and you can't change the millennial, but Gen Xers and boomers who are going to remain in the workforce, who are going to try to keep living and stay alive,
we have to change.
You got to change,
we got
right?
to change,
you got to change.
So, do you have one piece of advice for the millennials? I mean, the Gen Xers and the boomers, other than just being patient with this new group of people that are coming for? Is there any other thing that you could suggest that they just, other than being patient, to? Because I know that's what you do. You do leadership, So we are the leaders now. So it's but sooner or later that millennial is going to switch. They're going to be our bosses sooner or later, right? So how do we handle that?
What do you mean? How do you handle it? You got to be open to change. I mean that's what it boils down to. So you got to be open to change. At the end of the day, you have to be open to change, right? If you take a look at the landscape of corporate America today and business today, right? What's taking over now? You're starting to see this all the time. Well, AI is going to be a big thing.
Yes.
And then robots are kind of taking over. McDonald's will have robotic arms in their locations in the next couple of years. Domino's Pizza, they've already started putting robotic arms making the pizza. When you go on some cruise ships, they have robotic arms making the drinks. There's no bartenders, right? There's going to be robots walking the street in the next 2 years doing all the jobs typically that we don't want to do. But they say over the next 30 years, 200 million jobs will be taken over by robots. So with that being said, life is changing.
So we have to change.
Which means we have to change.
Right.
Yeah.
So that transitions really good into my next topic is banks and lenders right now are doing a lot of AI work in regards to social media and giving you a business loan to potentially you or me, right?
Right.
So what they're doing is they're taking that mindset of the AI and it says, okay, this person is this age, doing the typical way of looking at a person's credit score, so to speak, but they're taking it one step further. And there's a place in Africa that are just on the forefront of this, where they take your phone and they scrape every piece of information out of it, and then they turn around and they say, okay, this is how much they're posting, this is who they're calling, and they're taking all that AI data and applying it to if they're going to get the loans. They're doing these microloans where they're giving somebody $30 or $40, $50 because they need to get gas or they need to get some sort of service right away, and those microloans are paid back relatively quickly, but it's causing us to get to the next level where we are really in the AI age already, and it's just a matter of time before it's adopted anywhere. What do you have to say about something like that? I mean, is that something that you're scared of, or is it something you can see that it's going to be embraceable?
Well, I'm not afraid of it because for me personally, I use social media, to obtain business, right? Everything that is geared toward my business, my personal Facebook page is business, my Fair Consulting page is business, my Instagram, my LinkedIn page, everything is geared towards, achieving business. So for me, I'm not really concerned about that. But I do think that people that are not using it for business and they're using it for, recreation and things of that nature, they have to be very careful, because now if you have folks that are from the banks looking at you, and looking at who you are on Facebook, they may get the wrong perception of who you are.
Correct.
Right? And now, if that is one of the things that they're going to determine whether you're going to get a loan or not, there's going to be a lot of people in trouble.
Yep, it sounds like it. And we just have to be careful what we post. And as I mentioned in the series that I did this past week, we need to pay attention to what we post online. And it really is important to make sure that when we say something or do something, it's about our true character and not like there's the drunk character, if you want to go there. Because a lot of people go out and they have a good time and they get intoxicated and they start posting crazy stuff, and it hurts them instead of helps them. Everything from the job that they potentially want or the monies that they want to get for their companies, right? Yeah. So one of the other topics that I was talking about this week is our digital footprint. And you said you're massively on all these social platforms and you post a lot of information, both inspirational, motivational, as well as, this is the best way to be a leader, right? Does it make you wonder how much of that information out there is just being used for good, or do you ever think about something like that?
I really don't think about it that much, Larry, to be honest with you. Because I have a business mindset, and from my perspective, every post has a dollar amount that's attached to it.
Okay.
But at the same time, since you brought it up, if you really start thinking about it from that perspective, it is a concern, because people, you're telling them a little bit about your life, especially if you're telling them, like where you're going and when you're going. They get a chance to, if they have some ill intent, there's some data that they can use, to for their purposes, right. And so that it can be a concern.
There's some not nice people in the world, and if they don't like the message that you're portraying or the message that you're giving to, maybe there's a disgruntled employee that says, well, they used your practices, and now I don't like what you did because of what they did, and right. They always pushing blame on other people. That happens, especially now in our society. So it's happening more so than we would like it to happen, but it is still happening. So we just have to pay more attention to what we're saying and how we're doing it. All right. Well, the last topic I have in regards to what I did my series on this past week is a mobile safety, and it's a culmination of everything we just talked about, but it's more about are we making sure that we have a PIN, a passcode, or a fingerprint on our phones? And I'm sure you do that, right? So
I do.
It's because it's important, because everything in our phones is an extension of us. We have to make sure that everything that we say and do and think pretty much comes out of this phone nowadays, right? So if we don't have some sort of safety or security around it, then it's just going to get lost, and you're going to be exposed, both good and bad. I mean, do you want that? So I've told my audience, as well as suggesting to you what you're already doing, is let's make sure that we have our passwords and our fingerprints or our swipes on our phones to make sure that we're taking care of each other and taking care of our data, because it could go anywhere with that data, right?
Yeah,
So
I agree.
So you have any last thoughts about social media and how people can help themselves or help each other, or any just good, bad, or indifferent kind of?
Well, the only thing I can say, if you're using social media for business, the biggest thing is to stay consistent and to write content or use video content to get your message out, because social media really, I mean, it's your brand. You know, everything that you post, it has everything to do with your brand. So the nugget is stay consistent, post on a daily basis, and make sure that the content that you're putting out there is beneficial to your audience. And I think that's the key. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, thank you for coming today. I appreciate you let me have you come to my studio and we can talk through these things. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure, Larry. It's been a pleasure.
You're awesome, man. I appreciate your time.
All right,
thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Keeping the world connected, one geek at a time. That's me. And be excellent to each other and have a great day. Take care.
Larry, that was good, man. You did a good job.